We want the Arabs, the Palestinians, the people of Gaza to be treated as human beings. Nothing more, nothing less. Stop the killing. Give them food, give them medicine, give the babies the right to live. Is that asking too much? Where is the humanity? Where is the United Nations? Where is the international voice to defend what is right?
The rally is jointly organized by over 40 NGOs. It officially began with mass Maghrib prayers and Salat Hajat to pray for the well-being of the people of Palestine, followed by a series of speeches on the history and developments of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
Qatar's ruling emir has urged the international community not to grant Israel unrestricted authorization to kill Palestinians in its fight against Hamas. Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani said this in his first public comments since Qatar began its most recent efforts to mediate between Israel and Hamas.
نحن نقول كفى. لا يجوز أن تمنح إسرائيل ضوءا أخضر غير مشروط وإجازة غير مقيدة بالقتل، ولا يجوز استمرار تجاهل واقع الاحتلال والحصار والاستيطان، ولا يفترض أن يسمح في عصرنا باستخدام قطع الماء ومنع الدواء والغذاء أسلحة ضد شعب بأسره. نحن ندعو إلى وقفة جادة إقليمية ودولية أمام هذا التصعيد الخطير الذي نشهده والذي يهدد أمن المنطقة والعالم.
The Emir also called for serious regional and international stance against what he called a dangerous escalation, which threatens the security of the region and the world.
Nearly 5,100 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza after 2 weeks of intense Israeli attacks. Nearly half of those killed were children. The situation in Gaza Strip is getting more dire, with the Palestinian Health Ministry warning on early Tuesday that electric generators in hospitals will cease functioning within the next 48 hours due to a fuel shortage. Earlier on Monday, the ministry said that 32 health centers are out of service due to targeting by Israeli warplanes and fuel shortages. The United Nations has urged Israel to allow more aid into Gaza that is now trapped in a humanitarian crisis. Aid deliveries into Gaza through the Rafah crossing from Egypt began on Saturday after intense diplomatic efforts. But UN agencies say it is insufficient to meet the needs of the 2.3 million population. Separately, Israel has warned that it had no intention of easing its bombardment of the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Defense Forces say they hit 400 targets in Gaza over the past 24 hours. Hamas has released 2 women it held hostage following mediation by Qatar and Egypt. A spokesperson for the armed wing of Hamas said the 2 hostages, 85-year-old Yocheved Lifshitz and 79-year-old Nurit Cooper, were released on humanitarian and health grounds.
The 2 women were captured near the Gaza border with their husbands, who are still being held by Hamas. Hamas seized more than 200 people, including Israelis and foreign nationals, during its strike on southern Israel on October 7th. It previously released an American woman and her daughter on Friday. Israel is believed to be preparing for a ground invasion of Gaza, but there are calls in Israel for a rethink of the scope of any ground invasion, amid concerns over the fate of hostages and the threat of a full-on Hezbollah attack from the north of Israel.
The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission (MECC) interviewed several witnesses in its probe into an NGO collecting donations for Palestinians. According to MECC Chief Commissioner Tan Sri Azam Baki, the investigation was launched after allegations on how the NGO spent the money it raised.
He said the people summoned were those responsible for the NGO's expenses and those who audited its accounts. The MECC is now trying to obtain documents such as the NGO's bank statements and financial reports. It is also expected to conduct a forensic accounting to monitor the NGO's cash flow and determine whether the funds were actually used for the benefit of Palestinians. Last week, the Perlis Islamic Religious Affairs Department revoked the NGO's permission to collect donations in mosques and suraus in the state after receiving several complaints against the organization.
The government has no plans to introduce an end-of-life policy for all vehicles due to its impracticality. Transport Minister Anthony Loke says this is because such a policy could place additional burdens on the people. According to Loke, data showed that car sales were rising, which indicated that the economy was in good shape and that the people still depended on private vehicles. However, the government still encouraged the people to switch to carbon-free electric vehicles or public transport. Currently, Loke said the usage of public transport was less than 20%. He added that the government would continue to invest in the public transport system to eventually achieve net zero carbon emissions. The Fire and Rescue Department has confirmed there was a minor explosion at the Farmers Organisation Authority today. It received a distress call about the incident at 2 p.m, which occurred on the 5th floor of the agency's headquarters in Jalan Sultan Salahuddin, Kuala Lumpur.
The explosion was caused by an underground cable which resulted in a 2-square-meter fire and prompted an evacuation of the building. Also present at the scene was Agriculture and Food Security Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Sabu, who was due to attend a media engagement session. The Fire and Rescue Department said the incident did not affect the structure of the building and no injuries were reported. It added that repair work has been handed over to the building management for further action.
We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Sedar atau tidak, dunia kini sedang menghadapi krisis tenaga elektrik. Sejak dari tahun 2021 hingga pertengahan 2022, kita menyaksikan kesan ketara kenaikan harga elektrik di seluruh dunia. Di Malaysia juga tidak terkecuali. Tetapi rakyat tidak pernah merasa sebarang kenaikan kerana subsidi yang diberikan berulang kali. Namun, sampai bilakah kita mampu bertahan? Sebagai pengguna, kita boleh membantu negara menangani krisis tenaga ini dengan menggunakan elektrik secara bijak dari sekarang.
Welcome back. New Zealand has opened an inquest into the killing of 51 people at 2 Christchurch mosques in 2019. The inquiry, scheduled to last 6 weeks, will seek to determine what happened and recommendations to reduce the chances of a similar event occurring again.
The inquiry will examine 10 issues, including the response of emergency services and hospital staff, whether the gunman had direct help, and the cause of death for each of the deceased. Its findings are not expected to be published until sometime in 2024. The attacks on March 15, 2019 were the deadliest mass shootings in New Zealand's history. All the victims were Muslim. The gunman, Australian and self-proclaimed white supremacist Brenton Tarrant, is currently serving a whole life sentence. He was convicted of 51 counts of murder, 40 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of terrorism.
Indonesia's Constitutional Court has set up a panel to investigate a suspected conflict of interest in a court ruling which cleared the way for President Joko Widodo's son to run in next year's election. Gibran Rakabuming Raka's bid to become vice president was enabled by a court ruling last week, removing a minimum age requirement of 40 for presidential or vice presidential candidates on the condition they have been elected to regional posts.
The Constitutional Court had received 7 complaints filed by activists and others for suspected ethical violation in connection with the ruling. One complainant called for the court's chief judge, Anwar Usman, who is the president's brother-in-law and Gibran's uncle, to step down. The registration of the president's 36-year-old son, Gibran, as a running mate for Defence Minister Prabowo Subianto has raised concerns of a resurgence of patronage politics in Indonesia. Jokowi, who is due to step down in 2024 after serving a maximum 2 terms, has brushed off this claim. Indonesia is set to hold simultaneous presidential and legislative elections on February 14th next year.
China has removed General Li Shangfu as defense minister and state councillor in the second ousting of a senior leader in 3 months. Qin Gang, who was removed as foreign minister in July, was also stripped of his state councillor position earlier today.
According to state media CCTV, the removal of both men was approved by China's top legislators, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. No explanation was given for the removal. There is no replacement for Li appointed, leaving the country without a defense minister as it prepares to host foreign defense officials at the Beijing Jiangshan Forum this coming weekend. 65-year-old Li disappeared from public view 2 months ago when he skipped a meeting in Vietnam. He is under US sanctions related to his overseeing weapon purchases from Russia that bar him from entering the country. Reuters reported last month that he was under investigation for corruption related to equipment procurement and development.
Over in the US, an off-duty pilot has been charged with attempted murder after he allegedly tried to crash a passenger jet during a flight on Sunday night. According to an airline statement, the suspect was sitting in the cockpit of an Alaska Airlines flight behind the captain and the first officer.
The suspect, 44-year-old Joseph David Emerson, was booked on 83 counts of attempted murder and endangering an airplane. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, said Emerson tried to disable the engines on the plane by deploying the fire suppression system. The crew was able to subdue the individual and remove him from the flight deck before he was able to do so. An FAA pilot database shows Emerson is listed as a certified pilot who received a medical clearance last month.
In Iceland, tens of thousands of women, including Prime Minister Katrín Jakobsdóttir, walked off the job today to protest gender pay gaps and gender-based violence in the Nordic island nation. The walkout marks the first full-day women's strike in the country since 1975.
Women and non-binary people have been urged to refuse both paid and unpaid jobs on Tuesday, including domestic work. Sectors where women make up the majority of the workforce, such as education and health, were particularly affected. According to the Icelandic Teachers Union, women make up the majority of teachers at all levels of the education system, including 94% of kindergarten teachers. Around 80% of the staff at the National University Hospital of Iceland, the country's largest, are also women. Iceland is regarded as one of the world's most progressive countries in terms of gender equality, topping the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Index 14 years in a row. However, statistics show that women continue to earn at least 20% less than Icelandic men in some industries and professions.
That report wraps up AWANI Tonight. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching and good night.